Hello, everybody. This is my John Zandig, the Ultraviolent Icon Volume Best of Volume One DVD. This is the type of DVD I'd want to see Ichiban Pro Res watch, and not what get his reactions on it, but sit there while he watches it and watch his reactions to it. And I'm not saying it's bad. As you can tell, it's probably an overall rating at the bottom, but no star ratings, and I'll explain that when I get to the matches. This DVD is actually one of the more interesting interviews I've seen. I mean, a lot of people who I mean, it's probably just interesting because I've always been interested in CCW, not because it's good, not because it's bad, but because there's just something about it that intrigues me. And to kind of get an idea of the person who was running it in the early days is quite fascinating. I mean, John Zandig, a lot of my previous conceptions of who he was were changed. I mean, previously I thought he might have been egotistical. He doesn't come across as egotistical in this. He comes across as more naive, and not always in a bad way. I mean, really, he wasn't a big fan of the indies. I didn't know that previously. I didn't know what kind of upbringing he had, but it's kind of explained. He explains it, and you're like, that makes a lot of sense when you watch CZW the product, and then you hear his opinions on wrestling, or how he got interested in wrestling, or how he started wrestling, and it makes sense because it's consistent with what we've actually seen. And a lot of the stuff, it's a little hard to believe that that actually happened, but I can't confirm it one way or the other really. But some of it sounds like bullshit, but some of it to be true. He's like, oh, we drew this many fans, and it was off of this much promotion. And you're like, yeah, well, I've seen clips of the show and seen how many people were there, and people have said, yeah, that's pretty accurate. Yeah, I mean, and he comes across as someone with a very bad memory because he can't remember the names of a lot of people. He comes across as a very interesting and intriguing character. Sometimes he sounds very sadistic in the stories he tells, but I mean, no more sadistic really than Ric Flair did in his High Spots shoot interview, or Never as Stupid as Ric Flair on that fourth disc where he talks about politics. He doesn't talk about politics. I'm just saying he never comes across as stupid as someone like Ric Flair. Knocked into my lap. But fucking Ric Flair's DVD. I mean, Ric Flair's DVD was good, but a lot of it, was kind of skimmed over. And there was one major flaw with the interview that I found. Zandig had been criticised for his handling of the Big Japan CZW feud, in terms of you had more CZW guys going over, or John Zandig himself would beat a lot of the top guys in Big Japan, and then never did the job back, never paid them back really by doing the job, and giving them a bit of a rub. And so CZW came off looking better than Big Japan did. That was never really touched on, but what was touched on was financial issues within Big Japan. He didn't know the business aspect. He just was, complaining about not getting paid and how he handled the situation and who ended up paying him, who in Big Japan he liked. Junkazai, Shadow WX. He liked a lot of the guys there. He speaks about some of the situations in Big Japan. I found all the Big Japan stuff and how the situation came up, which was through ADV. They wanted to do CCW tapes because they were doing anime, and then they got the deal with Big Japan. And so I think he said he believes, and I'd say this is probably correct, that ADV has the rights to the Big Japan and CZW feud matches, in Japan. And that's very interesting. I'd really like to see a lot of those matches, at least on a DVD, but it'll probably never happen. I mean, some of it's out there, some of it's I'm not sure. I haven't seen a lot of it out there. But some things he gets wrong, but it's probably just because he didn't understand the situation fully, or not a lot of it does he come across as he's purposely lying about a situation, but then it never really comes across like that with anybody. But there's something about the way he speaks about certain situations where you believe he is telling at least his personal truth on certain situations, like how things was handled. He often admits where he's done things wrong. He's like, oh, we shouldn't have done that, we shouldn't have done this. And then often he stands behind decisions that he made that were stupid, at least from a fan's perspective. And And yeah, but it was just that one issue with the Big Japan question that I would have liked to have seen be asked. But it is one of the more interesting shoot interviews I've actually seen, and it's not just because he's talking about himself, but because he's talking about CZW as a whole, and CZW is a promotion that's caused a lot of controversy and generated a lot of interest from internet fans. So that is always, and there is a lot of historic moments, for better or for worse, in wrestling that have come from CZW. So hearing about all those from the guy who's running this thing is very interesting. Just like I imagine Dixie Carter's interview will be, her U-Shoot interview will be very interesting. But onto the matches. The matches were I can't give them star ratings because really, some of them were just unwatchable. And it's not because they were bad, though some of them I wouldn't say were great. But it's because of the camera work. They only had one camera, and it was a fan camera, and it was in the crowd, moving around. So it made things quite a bit difficult to see and understand what was going on. It just seemed like an incoherent mess. And so I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Who is that guy? And there was no commentary to really explain that. But there is one match that has two cameras and commentary, and that one really comes across at least the best. And, the matches themselves, you're like, from what I saw and what I could actually get through my head, is that seemed like a pretty good match. And the crowds were always quite big. I mean, there was a lot of people in the crowd, at least. And the crowd was always really into what was going on. I mean, surprisingly into. Like, the first match on there, they have CZW chants. I'm like, Jesus Christ. These fans really got into it. There's one match, though, Lobo and Rick Blade versus Zandig and Nick Gage. And I'm sure there's a few people who are out there who are CZW fans who will know what I'm talking about. And I believe this is the match at least, and there's a spot where, and I can't remember who was on it, it must have been Lobo, there was 3 layers of 2 tables, placed next to each other. So you got 2 tables like that, then 2 tables like that, then 2 tables like that, and on the top you had Lobo, and on the bottom 2 pairs of tables were lit on fire. And then from the ceiling, all of a sudden thumbtacks dropped. I'm like, this is really odd. Why would you set the tables on fire with a guy on there and then drop thumbtacks on him? And then a guy, I don't know who it is, just drops from the ceiling. He doesn't drop doing an elbow drop or doing a leg drop or doing a frog splash or anything like that. He just fucking falls from the ceiling with no shirt on, so he's obviously a wrestler. Though you can never tell. He might have just been a redneck there. But he just falls from the ceiling on top of the shit, and the tables fall down, the fire's still going, and you're like, what the fuck what was that? What did I just see? So I think that moment, just the insanity of it's just the most random shit I've ever seen on a wrestling DVD. I think that would be worth the $20 alone. And then later, the guy who was on the top of the tables, who took the bump, they're doing, I don't know if it was an angle, I'm pretty sure it was an angle, because I'm pretty sure they wouldn't fucking be resuscitating a guy with the fans watching. He's on a fucking thing, and the CW staff are trying to resuscitate him, breathe. What the? It's so just abstract and confusing that it's good in a way, good in a wrestle crap kind of way. I'm just like, what the fuck was that? What did I just see? I didn't even believe it. I had to go back and watch it again, but they even had a replay of it happening again from a different camera angle. It blew my fucking mind seeing that. It wasn't like it was a great spot or something like that. It was just, I didn't expect it. It just thumbtacks, and then 5-10 seconds later, a guy just drops from the ceiling. Smash. Fucking nearly killing himself. Whatever. But yeah, I'll give this DVD a 7 out of 10. The interview aspect of it is very interesting, at least from a CZW fan or someone who's interested in CZW will be interested in this. Somebody who is interested in CZW and Big Japan would also be interested in this. The whole feud and maybe the backstage kind of stuff. Maybe less interested in it than as just a plain CZW fan would be. But it's still very interesting to hear a lot of his perspectives on the things. The matches themselves really aren't worth too much in terms of the $20 you'd be paying for it. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10, and that's just for the interview itself. The matches for me just felt like extras that weren't really necessary, because he talks for 3 hours. That's worth the $20, I'd suppose. So yeah, 7 out of 10. check it out if you are an enthusiast of this kind of thing, which I am, because I'm a weirdo.